Let me tell you something. If you have had the DTs before, if you've experienced the delirium tremens, you would know. Like, if you've actually gone through it, there is no mistaking it because it's a very unique and particular sort of nightmare like experience. And I think the confusion comes a lot of times from people who thought they've had it when they actually haven't. Because I've had nightmarish withdrawals before, but DTs are very different. I did a video about this a couple of years ago, and I still get comments that are like constantly pop up about people's experiences, and they're just blindsided by them because DTs work very differently than normal withdrawals. I mean, first of all, their experience, like in that video I did a couple of years ago, I described it as like having a bad mushroom trip while you have the flu, which I don't actually think now, reflecting on it, it totally like covers it that well because there's this unexpected nature of it. And what happens, it's not just like a sort of trippiness because delirium tremens is like it is more like torturous mentally, like psychologically, than just like your typical shakes, vomiting, like those flu-like withdrawal symptoms. It is having hallucinations. It is hearing voices, and it's having experiences that are like like a lot of stories I've heard, and I remember one in particular that are close to you anyway. Like a lot of people see like their family members or people they love or something awful happening to them, either them or to the loved ones in some nightmarish sort of scenario. And it's almost more personal than maybe what you get on like a mushroom or an acid trip. And it's basically your brain being like poisoned into madness. Now, I remember before I ever had the DTs, I thought I knew what they were because they get lumped in with a lot of other withdrawal symptoms. Like if you've ever been through detox or had a chemical eval, they'll ask you like, have you experienced like the withdrawals such as headache, vomiting, the shakes, DTs, blah blah. And it's like, wait, you should address the delirium tremens differently because it's a whole different type of thing than your typical withdrawals, and it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't function like them either. Like it's almost like if you want to take the bad mushroom trip with the flu analogy, it's like being spiked with it though, or being dosed when you don't know. Because I remember, alcoholism is like a pattern itself and you get used to patterns. Like I remember when I had hangovers and then I progressed to withdrawals and I had the shakes violently. I was like, oh, these are like the DTs that I've heard of, right? Because again, it was nightmarish. And you drink more and the withdrawals get worse, but you get used to a sort of timetable. And then when I get the DTs, I could have never predicted it because I've had worse like physical withdrawals before without ever getting them. But that sort of switch that happens was unpredictable. And it didn't follow typical like the time pattern of withdrawals because it came on like day 4 or day 5. Like when I was just kind of exhausted and tired from the detox. I wasn't fully well, but I was like thought I was kind of getting out of it. Like I could see the light at the end of the tunnel, and it was like a tunnel into madness because these things just prick up. It's like your like brain is just firing in this different way, and it's like almost collecting memories and like nightmares and like these weird sensory things. Like I remember like one thing I hear a lot was almost this creepy music. It's like when you hear a radio on and you're almost like, am I hearing music? It was like that, but like this creepy sound or whispers or like something like that, like shadow people. Like you see a form of a person and then your brain almost kind of like starts to actually pixelate it and like create something out of it. Again, a lot like hallucinations, or not like them, but it's a lot like hallucinogens, but in this sense, you don't even know, like you were not prepared for the onset of it. At least I wasn't, because I thought, oh boy, buckle up, this is going to be a bumpy ride, terrible withdrawals are coming, and I'm detoxing, but you know what, I'll just try to sleep as much as possible, maybe like get some Ativan or some sort of like withdrawal drug to try to sleep as much as it's off, try to eat what I can and puke as little, but it's going to be bad. And then I remember when they set in, I was like, I actually think I broke my brain. Like, I think I'm going insane. Like, I think this is like what they call Kharkov syndrome when you have wet brain. Like, I think I have acute wet brain because I'm starting to like lose grip of things. Like sanity and like just the texture of things. Like, again, it is like being dosed with a hallucinogen when you already feel like crap and you're already just kind of in this mentally tortured place because you have the withdrawal anxiety too that just shoots through the roof. Your heart rate is like super accelerated, and then you have this crazy nightmare stuff happening where, again, just the people's accounts of the stuff before too. Like I remember mine, it was seeing some family members. It was a lot of just shadow people, and it was a lot of weirdly, like, very present shadow. It wasn't like, is that a shadow or is not? No, it was like a shadow person, like the silhouette of a person standing in front of me. And then the whispers from the other side of the bed, and I'd be like, "Ugh," and like flip around and almost try to smother something that wasn't there with a pillow because it was making noise. I couldn't see it, but it was making noise to me. I was not prepared for any of this. So it truly, if you're not prepared for it, or if you think the delirium tremens is just really bad withdrawals, then you will think you're going insane. And it's terrifying in that way because you're like, I broke my brain. Like, seriously. Like, when I've tripped before on hallucinogens, one of the worst things that totally turns a trip into a bad trip is when I had this thought that, like, oh no, I broke my brain and it's stuck like this forever. I'm never going to get back to normal. I had that very real feeling, and it almost felt credible because I was like, I didn't take mushrooms. Like, I don't know what's happening to me. And again, I read in like some Alcohol Anonymous stories about people going into madness, and I talked to other alcoholics before. I've been doing this alcoholism thing for a long time, not to brag. But no, I just thought it would just be shaking and the mental fogginess and the anxiety and stuff. But this whole other element of, again, truly seeing things that aren't there, believing they are there too. Like, it's one thing to be tripping out and you're kind of like, whoa, but you know it's not there. But having a sense, because you are in such a fogginess that you like are not able to parse out reality anymore. And it's like almost traumatizing to some people, and understandably so, because it feels so real. And not the way that a dream that feels real, but in an actual experience that you are very much having. And you're not, like, again, like a lot of people I've talked to, and me included, not prepared for it. Even after I had them once, I was still not prepared for it, because when I had them a second time in my life, once again, I was like, okay, these withdrawals are going to be bad, but I've certainly had worse. Like, I'm just going to couch it. Like, I'm not even going to the hospital or anything like this. Like, we'll just rough it out, you know? And then they came on, and again, they came on like days later. It wasn't like the worst phase where like everything's going bad. It was like kind of settling in, still absolutely unbelievably uncomfortable and sickly and anxiety driven, but like, we're getting through this now. It's downhill now. And then, no, this carnival of horrors just starts to appear. And again, I didn't even know how to like say what was going on. I was afraid to use the phone. I was just like, I'm going insane. I'm supposed to go to work in 2 days. Like, I gotta call in because I'm crazy now. And like that, when talking about the experience of it, that's what I mean, where a lot of people can think that they've had them before, but when you know, because it is unlike anything, if you're an alcoholic, and even if you've been through this a lot, and that's another thing, I drank for many, many years, and it kind of happened early, and then it happened later, and there was a time where I was afraid that it would happen again, and then it didn't happen for a while. Again, no sort of idea of when it was going to come up. Now, I mean, obviously, if you drink harder and it gets worse over the years, they're bound to happen, like my drinking patterns had changed, kind of my alcoholism had mutated to where it was less frequent, but harder in shorter periods of time, but still, I was just not prepared for it. And it was like something to where, unless I was knocked out, like you can have, like I said, the Ativan or some sort of benzo or, barbiturate, or I don't think I'm saying that word right, but some sort of medication that can ease them. It feels like there's like nothing that can ease this because it's your mind. Like, unless this thing is turned off, like, there's nothing that's going to get rid of it except for maybe drinking. But by that point, I was either not able to or too scared to like go outside of my room, outside of the bed. The bed was the safe zone. Like, truly, I laugh about it now, but in the moment when you believe what's happening is happening, it's horrifying. Now, speaking of horrifying, segue, I have a new book out that's called You Are Not Alone. It's a collection of horror short stories that's based on themes of addiction and mental illness and all that sort of stuff. Some deal with it directly. I have a link of where you can get the paperback or the ebook, or a way that you can get a free copy if you want to check it out, if it's a financial thing, whatever. Or, like I said, you want to do a little test drive of it. I have that there. I'll leave it in the little description right under here, right under this thing. Okay. Other than that, be well.